Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today, for the second time, is Rebecca Mountain. I love her name. I said that the first time we met. Nature reminds me of nature. So she's a best-selling author, international keynote speaker, certified high-performance coach, and a speaker. So this is my brief introduction for Rebecca, but the full bio is at the end of this video. I guess the first question to ask you, to introduce you to the new audience, the new people who listen and watching this, is how did you become who you are today?
Oh, wow. There's a loaded question.
Yes.
I'll try to make it brief. So I grew up in a cult, a Christian fundamentalist cult, very tight, very isolating, basically operating on fear and power, right? So that keeps you small. People wonder like why intelligent people get stuck into these kind of organizations. And at the base, we are human and we all have fear, right? And that is what kept you in. But 15 years ago,
Mm,
I left that cult, and I blew up my life. I lost my job. I got a divorce. I was on my own. I didn't know how to do anything like order cable, put on makeup, go shopping for things other than the clothes I'd been used to wearing, which was skirts down to the ankles and really super hyper modest stuff. So it was really jarring, and I felt very free. But about 10, 11, maybe even 12 years after that, I was, rebuilt my life. I had my social media marketing agency. I'd remarried to an absolutely delightful, wonderful upgrade husband. I had two
yeah.
stepkids and my kids. It was great. A
Yeah.
house, a car, a business. And I was sitting there going, why am I so miserable? And so that's when I started down my journey of like, okay, like, but what makes someone happy? What makes me happy? And I started asking myself those questions and started rebuilding, reprogramming, reconditioning, doing heart work and head work and body work and all this work to be able to determine what do I actually want to be? What gives me purpose? What gives me meaning? And then through that journey, I found high performance coaching. And then through that journey, I've written a couple of books. I've got more on the
Mm,
way, and I just dedicate my life to helping people to achieve three things: to be happier, wealthier, and fulfilled. Because I spent a lot of my time feeling miserable, poor, both monetarily, but also within me and my relationships. Like wealth is not just money; it's not a bank account that I'm looking for. Wealth is an overall richness in life. And I felt for a long time like I didn't matter. What I did didn't matter, that no one would miss me if I was gone. And I want to help as many people steer out of that and into that greatest part of their lives, to design it in a way they're like, oh my God, I get to go to work today. Right. And so that's kind of the meandering, and there's lots of stuff that happened in between, but there's, the short version of how I got to being sitting in this chair with you today.
yeah, and I know, of course, I know part of that story too from your book. I'll
Hmm.
I'll mention them in a moment. Before that, something caught my attention when you talked about fear. So some of us get into situations that are clearly irrational,
Hmm.
but do you kind of always point to fear when it comes to that, Rebecca? And can we become fearless? And what would look like to have less or healthy fear? I guess that's it caught my attention. You saying
Yeah, and you know what? It's not about being fearless. That's impossible, right? Because
right.
fear is good. Fear means we go to the edge of a cliff and we pull back. Fear actually helps us to kind of stay safe. So there is a healthy function of fear, but it's getting our fear down to that level. It's not magnifying it and creating false fear around it, which is usually predicated on avoiding pain. So there's three types of pain that we try to avoid as humans. There's loss pain. I'm going to lose something, right? So we can develop fear and anxieties about that. Sorry, not outcome pain. Process pain is the second one, which is this is going to be hard, right? I want to start a business. Oh, that looks hard. I want to get a new CRM. Oh, that looks hard, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of these things I want to try out for the basketball team. Oh, that's probably going to be hard. I want to run a marathon. You know what I'm saying? Like, so the process of it. And the last one, outcome pain, which I consider like the big daddy, is things like fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear
Mm,
of failure, fear of success. Like I work with people who actually hold themselves at a certain level and won't go up because they're already working really hard, but they're not working smart. And so they don't want to take on more business because they think they're going to like lose everything. So again, it's kind of, and usually there's an interweaving of these types of pain that spur behaviors like fear, avoidance, inconsistency, procrastination, perfectionism are all predicated on us trying to avoid pain.
Wow, that's a big one.
It is. It was an insightful one for me when I learned
Ah,
that.
yeah. So trying to avoid pain, and it's not just physical pain, but emotional pain,
Oh
all
yeah.
kinds of pain, right? And
Yeah.
I wonder if there's such a thing as spiritual pain.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a deeper, it's not emotional, it's deeper. It's like that. It's almost like in the pit of your stomach is your a spiritual pain, which I of course went through.
Yeah, yeah,
Because and it's not that spirituality is
it's painful.
problematic. It's
Yeah,
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 it shouldn't be. It should be full of love and full of
yes.
hope and joy and these kinds of things. But in the wrong environment, it is used as pain, right? And you can develop a really unhealthy relationship to spirituality, because you're actually missing it with religiosity. So it's a matter of like carving the two off and to say there's religion, but then there's my own relationship with whatever being or connectivity that you deem to be something that feeds your soul. But if that gets wounded through trauma, then yeah, their spiritual pain is absolutely a thing, and it is a very weird metaphysical kind of a thing, and something I don't think honestly there's a lot of studies that have been done around it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never heard it that way, actually. That's the first time I heard about the concept of spiritual pain. Of course, with from the lens of my own too, of growing up as a Catholic and not relating to that those concepts, it didn't make sense to me.
Mhm.
But I don't know how much of that was I could call it painful. It was confusing, but that's a form of pain.
It's a form of pain because confusion is like, what do you get? What happens when we are confused? We're trying not to make a mistake, right? So it's usually one of these kinds of pain that we're trying to avoid, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
confusion is part of that, and because clarity allows us to move confidently forward, right? And if you're confused, you can't move confidently forward, which means you're afraid of something.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I never thought of that way, but again, you're very insightful from for so many reasons. So I guess you mentioned your books. I want to mention the main topic of our conversation today, which is your third book, titled "The Fifth Hammer: Why the World Needs Your Weird."
Mhm.
And this is one of the. You're still working on the title and the subtitle, not the title. The title is it's very much that one,
Title
right?
is
The
that.
Fifth Hammer. So, but before that, Rebecca, could you please just briefly describe the other two books you have on Amazon, the out
Sure.
there, Think
Yeah.
Again and The Dragon and the Goat.
Yes. So Think
Thank
Again
you.
came out in February 2020. So excellent timing for the world to go absolutely to bonkerland. And that was it's called Think Again, my 7-stage journey from self-sabotage to success, which was unfortunately the exact same title as some big guy, named his Adam Grant. He also called his book Think Again. Mine's a bit different. So the first book was, what are the 7 major steps I took in order to remove that feeling of self sabotage? Because what I was doing was I was forcing myself into a small game because I was so afraid of everything. I was afraid of success. I felt I didn't deserve anything. I wasn't worthy of anything. I would never accomplish anything. Blah, blah, all these thoughts and beliefs that I created that then drove my behaviors. So it's, what are the 7 core stages that I went through to move myself away from that and into success? Where today I wake up every day and I'm like, yippity skippy, let's go to work, right? So that was my first book. And my second book is called The Dragon and the Goat, which builds upon that, but it's more core strategies behind shrinking the fear that we have, shrinking those behaviors that hold us back, and really giving like over a dozen different ways of taking fear, this big ugly thing,
Yeah.
and turning it into something useful. Same thing with anger. How can you take anger? And I have a lot of anger about, having suppressed it for like decades. How do I turn that into something that serves me? Because anger is healthy when you use it to stand up for yourself, when you use it for moral courage, right? Ethical courage. That's where you use anger. Guilt and shame, no longer hold me back. They help me to be a better person. I can look back on something and go, oh, okay, that's kind of hard to look at, but here's how I can make it better. So it doesn't hurt me anymore. So all these big things. So how do you shrink the dragon, right? Which
Yeah.
is your fight, flight, freeze, fawn, which is people pleasing, and feed, which is addiction. So how do you minimize those reflexes? Because the emotion brain is where all of our initial reactions come. We get an emotion reaction first, and then our thinking brains kind of kick in later. But
Right.
the emotions can very much overwhelm us. And now we don't have any brain function in those logical thinking solution parts of our brain. So we're kind of running on literally reaction, and no good thing comes when we're not thinking. So how do you minimize that reaction? And the GOAT part of the book is how do you scale up your greatness, your greatest of all time? That's what the GOAT is. And people haven't really thought about that. What makes you happy? What makes you feel energized? What makes you want to get up like I do every day now and like yippity skippy, I get to go to work, right? Like, how do
Yeah.
you get there? And so
Yeah.
it's a roadmap. So again, another dozen strategies, and you get to pick them. You can use all of them. You can use the ones that speak to you most. But the idea is the dragon and the goat are a yin yang. So the subtitle of that book is the one that wins is the one you feed. So if you continue to focus on what's holding you back, what you focus on expands. It will become bigger, it will become scarier. If you focus on your greatness, that's what expands. Your world gets brighter, it gets clearer. And that's what the book is all designed to help people do.
Wow. Yeah, we talked about the book before. I still have some of
Mhm.
the messages here that I loved from it. I won't read. I won't go through them now because I want to talk about the new book.
Right?
So, but yes, limitations, greatness. What is not to love about that message and
Mhm.
those insights? So, the new book, The Fifth Hammer. Why did you title it The Fifth Hammer?
That one has a story. I know, because it's like,
Yeah,
what the heck is the fifth hammer?
yeah, yeah.
So actually, it's a story about Pythagoras, and so the story goes, Pythagoras, who's a mathematician, scientist, was walking through a village one day and heard a melody coming from a blacksmith shop, and he's like, "That sounds cool. I like science, science of melody." I'm sure that's not what he thought, so I'm completely getting into his brain there. But let's just say he's like, "Woo, interesting." So he goes in, and there's five, call them brothers, and they're all hammering away, but in a very specific rhythm with five different hammers. And he thought, oh, that's really neat. So he bought all the hammers, went home, measured them, and really got found out that the first four hammers were at different sizes, but mathematically perfect, like
Yeah.
identical. And then there was the fifth hammer with his kind of this weird misshapen thing. And he's like, well, weird, and chucked it, right? So he brings it all back and he's like, all right, guys, go to town. I've now measured it. I want to study the science of harmony and melody. Go. And they went with the four hammers, but it was dissonant. It was like, it wasn't working. It didn't gel. And he's like, hold on, gets the fifth hammer, brings it in, this misshapen thing that does not match anything else, hands it to the fifth brother, and they go and they try it again. And now it's beautiful. So the idea behind the fifth hammer book was like, the world needs your weird, is the world needs those slightly misshapen, slightly
Mm,
off, not like everybody else kind of people in order to actually operate properly. And without those fifth hammers, you get discord, right? It's really difficult to have any kind of social unity, to feel connectivity, if we're only and ever prioritizing and praising the things that look the same,
mm,
normal,
yeah.
measured, okay, predictable, and whatever. But when you read, so the first part of the book is going to be about fifth hammers, right? I'm neurodivergent, I'm autistic, I've got ADHD, and probably a whole bunch of other fun things going on. My wiring is different. You like neurotypicals, right? See the world like this. I see it like this, right?
Yes.
Same world, different angle, right? So you can explain something to me, and I'm like, I got nothing. I have my husband. He is my person interpreter, right? So something will happen, and I'm like, I'm getting mad, and he's like, whoop whoop whoop. Like I know this world sees it this way, but let me explain what this person was trying to do, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh okay. So he's like my
Yes.
my autism whisperer. It's great. It's why we get along. So part of it is about that, about like really embracing what is
Yeah.
different about you. Like I talk about my autism, I talk about my, my cult upbringing, I talk about the way that I see the world and my strengths and my talents, and I try to bring that out as much as I can. But the other part of the book is for all the neurotypicals or the people maybe aren't as fifth hammerish to accept and praise. And it's not just being tolerant of these, different individuals, but it's wanting it, it's finding places for it, it's opening places for it, it's asking for it. And when you look at some of the most amazing inventors and people that run these amazing companies, most of them are a little bit wonky. They're a little bit weird. They're a little bit like, wow, I don't think I'd do that, and they're a little crazy, but like they're the fifth hammers of the world, and they need like the four other hammers to run the businesses and show up and do all the other work. But every once in a while, you just got to throw in that fifth hammer, and oh, it's absolutely beautiful when you do. So that's really what the book is about. Um, Part of it was predicated on my experience, but it's also inspired by my son's experience. So he's autistic,
Yeah.
and he's a male with autism, which is very different from a woman with autism. And I watched the world push him away, right? And as a mother, it breaks your heart into 1,000 pieces to watch people, like, because I see the looks on their faces. He doesn't, but I do, and it just shatters me. And so, I want a world for him where he can just go and say, I see the world a little like this. And they're like, that's so cool. How can we use your strengths? Right. And that's the kind of world that I really want to see more of. And that's what I'm hoping to do in a small part with this book.
Wow. Yeah, you made me emotional. Yeah.
I know. I get myself pretty going too when I think about that. Just fencing
Yes.
class and school, and
Oh my
I've always
God.
had to advocate for him and talk to teachers, and he needs accommodations, but talk to the teacher and just don't make it look that way,
Hmm.
right? Like don't make him look apart when really I should be like, that is like a whiz bang kid. He's got so many stories in his head. It's crazy. He started writing books when he was 7 or 8 years old, like random time and all these characters, and he would tell me stories for 2 hours, and you get really ticked off if I forgot which character was a bad guy and who was a good guy, and stuff like that. But that's an additional energetic engine that the world needs. We can't all be the same. Like that's boring.
Right. Wow, what can I say about that? What comes to mind over and over again is from my own perspective, navigating this world and being different
Hmm.
myself and getting a lot of those faces too and all that. Not having a mother like you, I'm like, oh my God, I wish I had Rebecca as the mother. But then what comes to me now as an adult is that we need more spirituality. We need more of this spiritual knowledge that everything is connected, that while
Hmm.
one system. So it's thinking about the body, the universe is a body. For me, has been my path, spirituality.
Hmm.
Probably for this reason too, feeling so um, out of the box and not fitting.
Hmm.
Then I had to go into something that would be universal and less personal. It
Yeah.
helped me with my own traumas, of course, but
Hmm.
also seeing everything as universal. How amazing life is happening in so many different ways. This is incredible.
Hmm.
It's not easy to do though when you have I would say when you wired or informed by trauma, which has been my case. So
Yep.
it's not easy to see people with certain personalities. Automatically, I think about my parents, how
Hmm.
unfortunately dysfunctional they were, and then that comes in, but I today I don't react to them anymore, to
Hmm.
those impulses, and I just kind of see as a universe again,
Hmm.
and that changes everything. But that's my spiritual practice. Do you actually see um spirituality playing a part when it comes to this deeper understanding of our interconnectedness as one system, one body?
Absolutely. You can't pull that apart. Like so right now the prevailing sort of thought du jour in psychology is mind body as one word, right?
Yes.
Um, but it still misses the spiritual component because people don't understand it and they misconstrue it with religion, right? And so because it's such a taboo topic and then fires all those online trolls into like, oh my God, they go into tizzy, right?
Yes, yeah,
We can't
true.
have like a lot of our desire to have these open conversations really gets drowned out by the people who just want a platform for their crazy talk. And by crazy talk, hurtful talk, right? You know, the finger pointing, and that's what I call crazy talk. Is it's not like I don't mind debate and I don't mind discussion, but I
Yes.
do mind destruction.
Mm,
Like those that's not part of it because the spiritual part to me, so there's mind and there's body and then there's spirituality that kind of wraps around it now, and however people define that, like I define it now as more of a really cool mystical connectivity between humans. Like how many times have you just been like, I really need to talk to Donna, and then Donna calls, you're like, whoa, right? Like how does that happen? Or
yes.
you're thinking about something, and part of it is understanding neuroscience, the reticular activation system, like what you focus on expands and all that kind of stuff, right? So if you think about positive things, your brain is more attuned to those things. But there's a connectivity, a human connectivity that again is so hard to understand, and it's mystical and it's fantastic, and I think people are far too closed to it. And so just when we were talking before we started, how sometimes people doing your work, because I have a client and she's in real estate, but she loves this work, she loves the energy work, and and yet she's just like, oh, but people aren't open to it. And I'm like, they can step aside. Like if this is your greatness, then you bring it, you fire it in front of people, and you allow them to become comfortable. Because a lot of times the reason people react negatively to spirituality or energy work or any of that kind of a thing is a complete misunderstanding or a lack of understanding, because a lot of these conversations haven't happened. But people like you who can, courageously come to the table and kind of go, let me explain to you how this works, right? Here's how not to be scared by spirituality. Here's how not to be afraid of energy work. I was reading a business book, a sales book about real estate, because I'm having a speaker come talk to my mastermind group. And the first third of that book was all about mindset and spirituality and energy and vibration. And I'm like, and that's a business book. And it was wonderful to see. And I'm like, yeah, right. It's not just, the how to stuff, which people are looking for. You have to wrap your energy work. And even for me as a high performance coach, there are 6 foundational habits that, if you practice them, have been statistically proven to deliver higher income, better happiness, stronger relationships. The second one, energy.
Ah,
Right? That's
yeah,
the second. It's not just like a subset, footnote over here on another habit. It's clarity is the first one.
yes.
Energy is number 2. Because if you don't have energy, if you're not creating and generating that, if you don't know where to find it, right? And if you are spiritually stymied, that's an energy, like, and something that can hold you back. So to welcome and introduce yourself to your own definition of spirituality, whatever that may be, opens up that channel for the energy to flow through. So it's way more important than people think.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for saying that. I have to thank you because I know your work is it's a bit different. Oh, it is different. It's just a different angle, a different
Yep,
way of
different
getting
approach.
right, getting to know ourselves. Basically, that's what spirituality means to me. Going
Mhm,
deeper into who am I, what am I.
mhm.
So with that in mind, I guess the if you don't mind me mention the alternative titles, like the second one that you have for the book.
I'm still working on them. Go ahead, please
Yeah.
do. I love it, and people are welcome to vote, whichever one you think is your favorite.
Yes. Okay, so I'll mention them. So the first one, why the world needs you weird. That's the one that's the main one now. The
Mhm,
second one, the fifth hammer, making universal greatness the goal. And then the third one, diversity as the path to innovation and empowerment. And then you have the last one, the fifth hammer, every brain matters. So when I looked at it, it caught my attention. The second one, immediately making universal greatness the goal. That
mhm.
was, I guess, because the word universal greatness, those 2 words are there, universal first. And then the last one, too, every brain matters. That caught my attention. So talk to me about this idea of universal greatness. I
Mhm,
know it has to do with uniqueness, and you have been explaining that
mhm.
since the first conversation, actually.
Yep.
So, how do we get to actually appreciate? How do we get to see that in the first place? Because I remember having a hard time even knowing what was unique about myself. Like, what
Mhm.
is something, in a sense of what what do I really feel joyful about it? What is important to me to this here? So, are those the questions to ask, Rebecca? Or
Yes.
yeah,
They really are, because most people live lives they feel they're supposed to live, right? So I live a life that my religion told me to live, that my parents told me to live, that my boss told me to do, that with this, that my friends are living and I'm mimicking and I'm looking and I'm like, okay, well they're doing that, so I should do the same. And we
yeah,
imitate and we pretend, but we're never actually real. That's why, authenticity started really coming into the forefront. Now it's way overused. So the idea of universal greatness is every single one of us has something in us that is great. People really get screwed up when you try to say what it is about me that is unique,
uh,
because now we're just like, I'm
ah,
special, right? And then they're like, how
yes,
am I special? And then now down the rabbit hole we go, but I don't feel special. I don't bring anything to the table that's unique. I have no value. I have nothing different. I'm just like that person, that person, that person. And the reason we're like that person, and that person is because we've spent our time imitating them. And so if we say, okay, congratulations to all you guys for being who you are. I need to figure out, like you said earlier, who am I? And again, that is a spiritual root and an energetic root and a mind root and a body root. Like there's all these different paths we can take, and everyone's going to get there from a different path. So if you take the spiritual path, awesome. If you take the energy path, awesome. If you take the mind path, awesome. And if you take the body path, also great. Doesn't matter how you get there. The where people get to that universal greatness is the goal. And what I really want people to define for themselves, and it's a simple question and a hard one to get to, which is what makes me happy?
mm,
What work makes me happy? So when I redesigned my life 4 years ago, I sat down and I'm like, okay, if I could do something, if I could generate a result every single day, what is it? Right? Like, I just got off the phone with one of my clients who is in real estate, but has a beautiful passion as a lactation specialist because she watched so many moms suffer. And that's where she actually started, and then kind of blew into real estate and then got deeper into it because living what she thought people were supposed like to do when they got into a certain level of real estate. So she's just like following after everyone else
yes,
and
yes.
got lost. And so just today we had this beautiful, I've never seen her so happy and so open talking about, she's like, I can do this. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And it's not unique and different. Other lactation specialists all over
Mm,
the place, absolutely. But we all make it different with our approach. Like I'm not the only high performance coach, but I'm one of very few who has, I'm the only one with my story, and I have my voice, and the way I bring something across is unique and different. And so we are all unique if only we can accept
mm,
our stories, right? And accept how we think and celebrate the snot out of that, and just to kind of be like, you know what, this is really cool. Like my ADD brain, my autistic brain sees things very, very differently from the rest of the world. I can't have a team. I can't have business partners. It just doesn't work. I don't play nice in the sandbox. So technically, I am a failed business owner, except I make high six figures and I live a life that I love, right? So I'm like, yeah, I'm not too sure. Like, fail is the word we're looking for here. Different from you, yes, but that's again what the book is purported. I really want it to do is to have people, me look at you and kind of go, I didn't get to my greatness through spirituality. Like, what was that? What has that journey been like for you? Tell me your story. Tell me what it's like. Educate me, bring me in to your world, not because I want to be like you, but because I want to celebrate you. And for you to look at me and kind of like, girl, I did not come through that route, right? The cult explosion of life, blah, 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 but you want to enter into my story, and it's that openness, but it's that exchange of value that is really what can create explosive happiness. And I run a high level mastermind, and it's only 7 or 8 people. And I've actually given a name to how I run these things. It's called the GOAT method, so greatest of all
Yeah.
time. And it's all about helping people to get out of what's holding them back by having other people contribute. So again, it's just different perspectives, but everyone gets to celebrate what everyone else is doing and help each other push along. So I hope that answers your question. That was a really long, meandering answer.
Yeah, it does. So I love the piece of community just now at the end, coming together to just
Hmm.
explore more of this universal greatness because it is universal. And you know, Rebecca, the more I get to through spirituality, the more I get to know. I was digging into who am I? Who am I? I just found what am I? So that I found the what, not really the who, and then the who becomes a lot more let's say, unclear to me because the body mind were just labels on
Yep.
top of labels. And
Yeah.
then it's just, that's why it caught my attention. Universal greatness. That's what we are, not even who we are, but what we are. Talk to me about how mothers, now that you talked about your son, you got me emotional with that. Yeah, gosh, I'm not a mother, but I'm just trying, just kind of picture you
Hmm.
and your son. I'm like, gosh, I wouldn't know what to do, but I know that you have all this knowledge that's so beautiful that you're passing on to him,
Hmm.
this empowerment kind of insightful energy,
Hmm.
but you're also protecting him, which is so important. So talk to me about what would you suggest to mothers, like something that they can relate to from any angle, of course, because we have different personalities.
Yep.
How can they protect their own kids?
Yeah. Well, the sad reality is you can't. And that is one of the hardest things about motherhood, a parenthood of any kind, but I'll just speak as a mother,
Yeah.
is to watch your kids suffer and to not intervene and to let that kind of go. And really what I've done with my son is I've taught him how to talk. How do you speak about your autism? How do you speak about, because he's got autism, ADD, OCD, Tourette's syndrome, ADHD, I think I said that one already, anxiety disorder, and leaky brake syndrome, which is an inability to stop when you know you're really supposed to stop and you just keep
Yeah.
on keeping on. So it's leaky brakes, as in like pump the brakes in a
Yeah.
car, not
Yeah.
brake is like brakes in a car, leaky brake. And it's an actual syndrome. Anyway, so what I've done, and I've known that he had neurodivergency since he was 3 years old. It was brought on by trauma because that's how old he was when I got my divorce. So that triggered a lot of the behaviors to come to the fore. And so, I've worked with him for 14 years now. He's 17, on how to cope, how to identify in his body what's going on, in his mind what's going on, and in his environment, and how to respond appropriately in certain sense, how to advocate for himself, how to not take jerks, right? And to literally, because someone came up to him once, I can't, it might have been grade 8 or something, that he's like, "You're weird. Are you autistic or something?" And he's like, yeah, and the kid was, like, ashamed of himself because he was just like, "Oh," like, he meant it as an insult, but then you realize, like, you're actually like, that's what an autistic boy like my son looks like. Again, if you meet one autistic person, you've met one. Every autistic person is
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
And so being able to help him advocate, even at work where he works right now, there are certain people that they make fun of him, they talk down to him, and I'm like, buddy, it's like, because he can't do certain things. Like he's a cashier and he is brilliant, but you get him to stock shelves, I don't know what's gonna end up with what price tag. It is definitely not gonna be when it's on, right? So, and they got really frustrated and angry, and so I taught him, like, "Zach, you have to tell them, 'My brain doesn't work that way. Do not give me that job. I will fail at that job, but I am excellent over here. Like, give them another place to put you.'" And they're like, "You know what? That is definitely not the job for you. Off you go to cashier." He's got great managers. It's just some people that work with him don't know how to deal with him. But I wanted to teach him, if they don't know how to deal with you, teach them. Tell them. He works with his friends. He's like, "Guys, I can't read the room. I don't know if you're being serious because I can't read sarcasm." Right? I don't understand. He doesn't understand certain interactions, and he over apologizes, and he just sort of like gets really kind of on top of people to make sure they're okay because he can't read the room. And so, I teach him, okay, like you can ask them, do you want a drink? Twice. 25 times is excessive, right? So, like, give him some of these rules that he can live around, and now, like, he can cope with people, so it's not pulling himself back, but it's understanding how to articulate himself with the world, and, he's terrible at math, but he's brilliant at writing, and so we don't focus on the math, 'cause there's no point in taking a weakness like that. So again, as from a mother, don't force your kid, neurotypical or neuroatypical, doesn't matter. If they suck at something, go, "Wow, that didn't work. What are you good at? Let's scale up your greatness. Let's build up what's easy and wonderful and, and joyful for you," and teach them that. Because if you can teach a child how to generate joy and motivation and confidence from a young age, you have given the gift of life.
Wow. Oh, I love that. What is not to love about all that? Do you actually work with mothers like yourself, Rebecca?
I don't, interestingly enough. Like, sometimes my clients will have neuroatypical kids.
Yeah.
Sometimes my clients are neuroatypical themselves, and so it's kind of a fun balance, but no, I don't actually have it as a practice. I have been asked that before, "Can I work with parents and children and stuff like that?" And it's an interesting expansion thing, and interestingly, my son has shown interest in the work that I do because,
Yeah.
again, he's an excellent writer and he's a
Yes.
great speaker and he can really connect with people, and he may be able to connect with a generation that I can't connect with, right? Because 'Cause I'm 47 and counting, and he's 17, right? So it's like, well, maybe there's a place there for him, and we're just kinda keeping it open, but no, I typically don't have an actual line of my business where that is the focus. I'm absolutely able to, but that I don't have an actual focus of my business for that.
Yes, okay, that's good to know, but I love the idea as a vision for your son to do that in the future.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I try not to get too excited about it because 'cause I'm just like, "You do you, kiddo." I'm like, "Oh, but it would be great."
Yeah, yeah. And something that I noticed, I interviewed somebody else, probably as a year ago. He was a psychotherapist who has a very
Mm.
successful um, clinic of psychology in California, somewhere in California.
Mhm.
And we talked, we had this interview here, and I remember laughing like throughout the interview. He was, I mean, he was so light, playful, at the same time, very mature, very intelligent, but playful. He would make like silly stuff. I would like, what makes you happy? He would say blueberry muffins. And I love making blueberry muffins for my girlfriend. And then he would talk about the horror movies that they watch and all that.
Mhm.
So the interesting thing is that I just interviewing you for the first time when we met and then here and you asked me off record when you look at me like what's the energy, you see it's playfulness, but there is also something very mature which reminds me of a mother, like this energy of a mother. So that's one thing that caught my attention, and he was not the first person, autistic person, that I interviewed. He was so much fun and so you. So I
Mhm.
think there's something about that, when we come to empowerment, right? That's
Mhm.
what I mean, that's another word that caught my attention. Is that the meaning that you give to it in a way?
Empowerment is, to me, can also be, interpreted as you have choice. And a lot of what I do for my clients is bring them from a position of I'm stuck to I have choice. You want to stay with your husband or you want to leave because he's abusive or whatever. Like, or it's just not a good relationship. You get to that point where you feel empowered to make a decision for yourself. So
Yes.
you don't rely on anyone, you rely on yourself. So it's looking inward, not outward. Empowerment is looking inward and going, what do I want? What is best for me? Right. And then being able to say, because what is best for you will be best for everyone else around you if they're aligned and connected. But if they're misaligned, again, whether it's family or friends or colleagues or the work that you do, right, or the job that you have, the organization you work for, all of those things, the environment in which you find yourself, the people you surround yourself with, being able to make an assessment of I can. There's always, and it comes down to something I've lived according to for about probably half my life. I haven't acted on it until like the last 5, but I've always felt that a life where you feel that you can always live with something, change something, or leave something.
Yeah.
You always have choice. And to say that, "Oh, I don't like my job. I really, really hate it. Quit." Well, I can't because stop. Yes, you can, right? That you haven't looked, that you haven't that fear has kept you back from even looking or exploring, that's okay, it's an understanding, but please understand, you can, no one's ever truly stuck. There are sometimes giant hurdles that people have to go through, and it is not easy, right? But, in nearly and I can't say 100% because there's never 100% on anything, but in nearly every case, you do have a choice, or at least that's what I wanna get people into, and that's what empowerment means to me, to look inward and say, I can make this choice. This is what is good, not only for me, but in a good way. It is a joyful thing. It is a confidence builder. It's a motivator. And to not have to depend on anything outside of ourselves to make the world we want for ourselves.
Wow. I love this concept, the idea of
Mhm.
empowerment
Me
and
too.
choice. I mean, what's not to love about
I
it?
know. Where do we go wrong?
No, yeah, that's very much resonates. Yes, with this idea of choice was not feeling ready to make the choice, knowing that
Mhm.
the option was there. I could make that choice, but I didn't feel ready. So would that get in the way? And why do we don't feel ready to make a choice that's actually better for us? I wonder why. Is there something that it goes back to, perhaps
Mhm.
from my perspective, would be like this universal wisdom kind of playing its role in doing what it does. I don't think we have control of everything. I really don't believe in free will, but that's a different conversation,
Yeah,
I guess.
that's a whole other podcast.
It is.
Well, if we
Yeah.
wanna talk about it in just sort of the base level of, like, you know what you want to do, and yet you don't. So that's holding back. That's one of the 3 pains you're trying to avoid. You're trying not to lose something, you think the process is gonna be hard, or you think the outcome is not gonna be favorable. And so we hold back, and we try to mitigate, and we try to plan, and we try to prepare. A lot of my procrastinators call themselves master planners, and I'm like, "No, no, no. No, those are 2 very different things. A master planner eventually executes said plan, right? So a
Yes.
procrastinator, is someone that is always it's fear of launching. And say perfectionism more so. Like I'm a perfectionist. It has to be perfect. I'm like, no, you're actually scared. That's an outcome pain. You're afraid it's going to work or not work. Either of those things is actually at play. And when you understand the pain that you're trying to avoid and the behaviors that come out of it, then you look at the behavior and say, okay, what story am I telling myself? Right? Because from the emotional body response comes now the thinking logic connection, where we connect the mind to the body. And just say, okay, what am I building up? Is it true? And it's creating a belief system that's holding me back from taking action. Right. And so that's the sort of the exploratory work that you would do to say, what does it mean to be ready? Is
Yeah.
anyone truly ever ready? What does ready ever mean? We're never truly ready. We're never truly confident, and we don't have the motivation we need.
So true.
Those are
So
mythical creatures like
yes.
Snuffleupagus, right? They don't exist. So if, however, you take a step towards something, you will find that suddenly you become ready. And usually it's looking back and you're looking like, looks like I was ready.
It's so insightful in so many ways, at different levels, different angles, just looking at the whole picture. It's just so beautiful how life expresses itself. Incredibly beautiful, I have to
Yeah,
say.
it
Um,
is in
yeah,
different ways. Yeah.
amazing, amazing. The more I'm exposed to wisdom, the more I see that, like, and even when I'm not, of course, I know the mind is just trying to kind of make sense of everything, of
Hmm.
suffering and everything, and it doesn't
Hmm.
work really. That the nature of the mind is really to know. It wants to know things, but and then it kind of comes to its own limitation. Trying
Yep.
to know everything, actually, in the end, knows very little. The
Hmm.
whole picture, when it comes to this whole picture of life, I
Hmm.
think the how to, it's easier. Logically, it's easier to see. If I am thirsty and I drink water, then satiates the thirst, of course, the how
Hmm.
to. But there's something bigger than that that keeps kind of attracting me. That's the big picture. What's going on here? I remember when I was very young, like, what am I? What is this? Like, I could not really comprehend
Hmm.
what this was. seeing people around me, talk already about things that I couldn't understand, like the interpretation of reality.
Mhm.
But for some reason, it never really satisfied me. There's something beyond all this. And
Mhm.
now I can, when you have the glimpse of what that is, it goes back to love. It's amazing how it goes back to universal, unconditional love. It always goes back to that.
It does.
Unifies everything.
Yep, it really does. Because when you love, you are open, you are vulnerable, not in a way that you're like, "Oh, you're gonna get hurt,"
Yeah.
but you it's a true openness and a willingness to receive and to give. It opens the channel between 2 people, and 2 people truly love each other, or like groups of people. The channels are open and the sharing is amazing, and when I was talking about my mastermind earlier, the cohort that I'm working with right now, like, they are so powerfully helping each other because the methodology is very simple. I bring somebody to the front and they present, "Hello, my name is Rebecca, and this is what I do. But this is my one big thing. This is the thing that I'd really like to do, whether it's write a book, get on stage, grow my business, work from the beach, like whatever they want to do, right?" And they present it, and the group asks questions. And then what I do is I take that person out of the room and we hang, right? The rest of the group says, "Okay, how are we going to help Rebecca, or fictitious me, get to where she wants to go?" And then they come up with all these crazy ideas, right? So they go to town for that. I then bring the person back in. I give them a notebook, a pen, and one rule: they can't say no. They cannot shut themselves down to the ideas presented, no matter how outlandish or crazy it's going to sound.
Yeah.
Keep the channel open, and they
Yeah.
fight that channel. Oh, they fight that channel, because they
Yeah.
get their book and they sit there with a pen, and then it's an answer they don't like, they just don't write it down, and I'm like, "Ugh." So I'm writing it down. I'm like, "I'm writing it down." I'm like, "You're gonna get the
Ah.
goodness." Right? So it's super funny, and so they can ask, they can clarify, but they cannot say no. And then we break and we go through the system, and it's a being able to be given that rule of forcing the doors open, because sometimes when we're not used to it, we're not used to love, we're not used to vulnerability, we're not used to being open and sharing. You kind of got to open the doors and then bolt them open a little bit with a rule like you can't say no, and then away you go. But that one rule, I was talking to one of my clients because it's a year-long program, and she was saying it was the most pivotal, important, and mind-shattering thing that she's ever been given to do is to not say no, because it's our default, right? Our default is to negativity, right? So our default is always no.
Yeah.
Someone calls you on the phone, no. Someone comes to your door, no. Right?
Yeah.
Do you want
Yeah.
no? That's just how we're built. So when you force them to say, like, your default is no longer available to you for the next half an hour of your life while the group presents the ideas, it really changes the mindset. And one guy went a little bit further because I had a wrap up dinner or whatever, and we invite the spouses, or the plus ones as we call them, to come along. And he stood up at dinner and asked his girlfriend to marry him. And we're like, "Well, she can't say no." And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. That's not how this works." But thankfully, she wanted to say yes, so that worked out really well. But I mean, like, he picked a good time, a
Yeah.
room full of people who had
Yeah.
just been given the rule for like 3 days, and you can't
Yeah.
say no. So it was a good environment. But like, that's the kind of openness I want to bring in the world. So I'm looking at doing more workshops to help people, bolt those doors open, let the channel be open, and to push people to do that for an entire year. I want to create a habit that they becomes a new behavior, so that this is what then they bring that into the world, and they help other people to be open. And the ripple effect I'm really trying to create is one of the universal greatness, because if they can feel their greatness and find their greatness through that openness, then they want more for other people, because it feels so good. It feels so good, right, to be able to step into that. It's not that it's without fear, but it's with support, and it's with that open channel, so you're never alone. And a lot of entrepreneurs, especially, like, as you do well, it gets really lonely, right? Like, I don't have anybody to bounce ideas off of. I'm like, it's me and my cat. I'm like, "Hey, buddy, like, how you doing? I got a great idea. Right?
What would you say?
He's
Yeah.
always open. He's always like, yep. So it's good. At least that's how we interpret. So, being surrounding yourself where that channel can be open, even if you have only one person to do it with, it allows you to tap into that greatness and to say, you know what, this is me, and unapologetically, unappeasing to anybody else other than me. I'm an empowered, universal greatness state of mind. This is what I want to bring into the world. And that's what my next book is going to be about. How can we find the courage to do that? But how can we teach other people to let us? Those two things.
Wow, Rebecca, I love everything about it. I
Oh,
mean,
thanks.
everything, everything.
I can't wait to get the thing finally done. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and also the fun that you bring into it. The
Yes, I
way
can't help myself.
it's fun. Yeah, even I mean, during the interview is fun. I can imagine a group, coming together with you and exploring all this, being open to possibilities. That sounds wonderful to me.
We have a good
And
time.
speaking, when is the book will be published? Do you have any idea the release date?
I want to say mid okay, it depends on how much my publisher kicks my butt, so let's call it the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Next 3 to 6
Okay.
months, that'll be hopefully into the world. But I will absolutely, you'll be one of the first people I will let to know. I'll send you the manuscript so you can take a look at it.
Yes, please do. I would love to. I mean, I already have an idea, but I would love to
Oh,
know more
sure.
of what you. Now I have an idea already by talking to you and reading the abstract. You sent me just
Hmm.
a short kind of description of it, but I would love to read that just to know more. Yeah, I mean, you open up my own kind of way of seeing this relative reality, because I call it relative reality,
Hmm.
not the absolute reality. So it's a lot of fun. That's what I see. How much we can do with the body mind, which is it is the expression of the absolute. So in the absolute, there's nothing. So this is like fullness,
Hmm.
creativity, and this kind of intelligence that connects us. I mean, why not be devoted to it? Is my case. I
Yeah.
love communities. I love people. I mean, this people in the sense of knowing that they are this. I mean, they're just life itself dancing here in so
Hmm.
many different ways.
Hmm.
It's
You got it.
incredible.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for being you.
Oh, thank you for having me. I
So
love I
beautiful.
love these podcasts with you. They're so fun. You have such good questions, and you really get into the heart of things. And I love your perspective, and I love your openness to different things. But I also love and honor your greatness, right?
Oh
Your
my
what
gosh.
you
Yes.
bring into the
Wow.
world, because the world needs more of what you have. And I just hope you just keep bringing that greatness out and never hide it, never smuggle it in, right?
Yeah.
Just letting it shine, because the world
Yes.
the world needs it. That they don't understand it is different from not needing it, and this is where you can be really, really helpful.
That is true. Yeah, thank you for saying that again. I know you said off record, you said now. Yes, and I did use the word smuggling, yeah, because I'm like, oh, should I? So I want to mention at the end of this interview, I want to mention the programs on your website. I went there and took a look at it.
Yep.
High performance group coaching. You have been talking about this. You have the high performance coaching, high performance masterminds, which you just
Yep.
described, high performance coaching for teams, and you also have the Rebecca Mountain Show, a podcast. So
Yes.
I would love to hear a little bit about that though, because I forgot to ask you before.
Oh, well, that's sort of okay. So I've been cheating for the past couple of years. I'm getting
Yeah.
more intentional with my podcast. I'm sort
Okay.
of This is my growth year. So my podcast is really, I do a whole bunch of sort of really like thought leadership or helpful tools on how you can overcome anything. So
Yeah.
whether it's overcoming anxiety, whether it's how to understand different types of breath work, whether it's productivity hacks, or like how to deal with perfectionism. One of my highest viewed videos is nice is enabling, kindness is clarity. And so understanding the difference between being nice, where nobody wins, versus being kind, where everybody wins. And what is the difference and what does it look like? So, really, my podcast is those in MP3 form. But I'm doing a whole bunch of really cool interviews with some people. I did one today. I did one a couple of weeks ago. So what I'm looking to bring into the world is more thought leadership around the whole idea of greatness, right? Around the idea of like just
Mm.
different ideas and embracing new ways of doing things and really bringing more of that into the world. So it's called the Rebecca Mountain Show. I may or may not change the name. I have a name in my head, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to use it yet. So I'm still percolating that. But for now, the Rebecca Mountain Show. I've got 100 or so episodes on there. They're usually shorter. So some of the interviews are longer, so hour and a half. But most of them are anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes, so people can just get some quick little snippets, while you're brushing your teeth or walking the dog or whatever to help them out.
Yeah, so that's good to know. That's another beautiful way to connect with people in a meaningful
Mm,
way, in a deeper way. That's
yeah.
why I do this too. Oh, what is not to love about connection? And then I have a team, they're like family to me. So everything doing this is just incredible. It feels like a gift, really.
Hmm.
So before we say goodbye for today, Rebecca, I know the website to find more information about you. It's rebeccamountain.ca, and I'll
Yep.
have that at the bottom of the interview, the podcast notes. Before we end the conversation, I can't help but ask you the question because not just because the theme is the freedom to feel, but has the
Mhm.
word freedom there. So I'll end with that question. What is freedom to you?
Freedom is the ability to choose for myself in
Yeah.
every way, to choose how to feel, how to think, how to act, how to go about my life. It's the freedom to choose.
Yes.
That's what I'm after.
How wonderful. Thank you so much again for your presence, your beautiful
Thank
presence.
you.
It
I've
is
thoroughly
beyond.
enjoyed. I always enjoy our talks. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you having me here today. It's a gift.
Yeah.
That's your gift to me, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. It feels the same way. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch soon. We'll
Good.
definitely be in touch. Bye for now,
Bye,
Rebecca.
honey.